Hey Luca, so this is what is this? Oh, this is what I wanted, or what I was ready to touch on today. If we had that meeting, and it was basically regarding um these these capitulation moves on metals yesterday. So of which obviously the best one was gold. And the best one was gold because of, all of them were kind of like capitulating and all of them had some sort of bounce, including silver here. But if you zoom out to a 5 minute, the extent of the real capitulation wasn't really, it never, it kept here, the bottom of this range, for example. So there's clearly a target area for this and a bounce from that area. If you see the signs of it bottoming um, for a trade there. So that makes it a really good candidate for the bounce. But if you look at the one in gold, this, you know, just like the one in silver, it broke below broke trend there. So we had an uptrend line there. It breaks below trend. But even if you zoom out here, on the 5 minute. You see the bottom of the range here. This thing went way below the bottom of the range. So this was true capitulation, and it was taking out basically the bottom of that range. And of course, if there are any people buying the bottom of the range, thinking that that's the extent of the move, just like on the other ones, they get trapped and it creates an even, a worse capitulation here. And you can see that. So the bounce, I think when you and I were on the call and you were playing the bounce of all these things on copper, it was around 8:20 a.m. before the open. On gold, this was the bottom of that one. That was the bounce, and it was in line with the bottom. So going back to the 1 minute here, after the open, let's go actually to a 5 second. After the open, you see the first really strong volume capitulation and attempt to um, basically to for a bounce happened. um, I would guess here, because look at this candle. It's insane. It's hugely huge candle, which was in the 4,580s here, and it tried to bounce, or at least a lot of buyers stepped in. Look at the volume that them here, and that was pretty much in line, a little bit below here, but just in line with the first bounce in the pre-market, which is at 4,585. So, which was also, if we zoom out, in line with pretty much all these bottoms here. It's the bottom of the range, the 4,580s. So when that thing gives out, then we see, back to the 5 second, then we see um, when this gives out, then we see, look at the increase in volume here. We're seeing extreme volume here, and it is, um, compared to before, right? And the volume before, this is after the open, so this is all regular trading hours, and this is, look at the volume, and now look how the volume, we get the increased volume on this capitulation. This should be the bottom of it, and when it doesn't hold, then look at the increase in volume and look at all these, by any means, like in relative terms to any normal trading, these are all capitulatory volume candles, and none of them is marking the bottom. So what's important from that? It's important is that we get the first true volume capitulation here, and it doesn't bounce. And then it keeps pushing lower and it's trapping, obviously. All this volume that traded there was trapped, but there's also people trying to catch the bottom. They're thinking that then it's going to be this one and this one. And all of a sudden, if you see that on the tape, which I'm going to go and review the tape footage in a second, um, the importance of capturing what you see on the tape is typically something that's like a somewhat steady but stall tape speed, and then when you get to that bottom, you get this huge burst of speed in the tape, and all these block orders come in and whatnot. And when that's supposed to be signaling the bottom, when it's not the bottom, that really fast printing tape and all those block orders and all those that negative delta constantly now becomes the norm. So um, it becomes like it's like a new regime where now it's a hugely a lot of volume, really fast tape, um, but it's not. It now that's the norm. So now we need to see something even more extreme for us to find that real capitulation that's going to to show us a bottom. Um, and we get some of that here, and it still keeps grinding lower. And then we get the final one here. And look at this volume candle here. This is the one that finally, kind of like is a final capitulation. But also it's price capitulation. So Lance talks about, I've seen a ton of videos about Lance talking about exhaustions because that's his specialty. He's famous for being um, for taking those capitulation longs, he calls them. Um, and he talks a lot about the geometry of the chart or the geometry of the move. And so you can see here how even though it's an extreme capitulation and it's still like, you want to see that geometry change where it's going from this slope, bam, to extreme price capitulation combined with that volume capitulation. That's what ends up giving us the bounce. And to be honest, here, when this happened, the push upwards was just like a trampoline. It was like a spring. Like it was super powerful on the way up. And then obviously, well, if you holding that move all the way up, it's like a whole like a huge trade. So this was the best play of all the metals because just I wasn't I was trying to fix another issue. I wasn't trading this, but I saw it when it was happening. Um, but we have to sort of like review the scenario and then see how will we play it if we see something like this next time. And then if we like because in the pre-market we kind of had a teaser of something like that, which was this little capitulation that we played, and you played it in copper. And my view here is that it would be a huge mistake to be trying to play this in copper. I guess HG it is. Okay. So this would be the move in copper, right? Um, or even silver. Dude, what the fuck? Okay. Um, where are we? Okay. Even silver. Silver was much more capitulatory, right, than copper. But still, you don't see here the same um, all the elements that combined there in the gold trade that made it such a good one. Here, the bottom of the flush in the pre-market is here, and it didn't really go far below that. you can't really say that it took out these lows except for just like an overshoot, and the volume was already there, sort of. Maybe it did overshoot a little bit, it chopped around, but in the end, bam, bam, and the bounce wasn't also as definitive and as clear as the one in gold because there was no such true capitulation like the one you saw there. So even the silver one wasn't as good. Definitely not copper because copper compared to the moving gold is like it's understandable that it's like okay, there's some correlation, so it's also, but it's not giving you the same edge at all, right? Um, so and I mean the other ones are I guess palladium and which one's palladium? This one palladium and platinum, right? And those are again very thin compared to um, palladium didn't even give us anything tradable in my opinion. And then platinum, let's see, sort of, yes, sort of gave us something here. Um, this looks a lot better actually, but nothing compared to what happened in gold. So it's the thing is that in a moment like that, like okay, all the metals are melting down, but then you see gold and you see what it's doing, and you see that it took out the lows that you actually traded before by far, and you see, so you have to choose the best instrument, the one that's going to give you the most edge, in my opinion. And this would have been gold. It would have been a no-brainer. That's the one that we had to trade. Um, just even by simple math, like it's capitulating the farthest, which means that the bounce is going to be, it has a lot more ground to cover. So if you're looking for a trade to hold, a mean reversion trade to hold, well, the reversion to the mean is going to cover a lot more range. So it's going to be a bigger trade. So for that reason alone, it's more worth it. But also because, especially because it's taking out the bottom of a higher time frame range, and it's taking the bottom of the previous bounce here, and um, and also because of the way it looked in the tape. Like on the tape, it was like true capitulation. This was easy to read when it actually finally got down here. So that's my opinion on what happened to those things, and I think it's a good exercise to go over these capitulation moves because these are huge. We haven't really done that together. Like we haven't, when we've been trading, we haven't really traded something like this, but this is a big part of um of my trading, of my playbook when I traded equities. I'm always trading capitulation longs, and I've actually that's actually the first setup that I ever learned to trade. Um, when I was trading, when whatever these after hours or pre-market biotech companies that were missing, that were getting adverse results and would plummet 50%. Those are the ones I was trading those bounces. So anyways, um, that's something that I wanted to go over. And then um, since starts, by the way, the thing that the thing with Rhythmic, I finally resolved it. I was chatting back and forth with them for hours last night after 10:30 p.m. Literally, that's when they came back to me and said, "Oh, we realize that your silver data was corrupted," and then whatever, they reimbursed my whole P&L. So at least that was good. Um, but let me start then here with the first. So this one in silver, this was before any like real true capitulation. This was still within the range. This was just a little break of trend here and then a little flush into that trend line and then a bounce from the trend line. Nothing dramatic, but within a more micro and a more lower time frame perspective, it's a good example of basically, let's go back to the 5 second actually. Basically that the same principle applies but on a lower scale, which is like you're getting a breakup trend here, and then we're getting sort of capitulation, or at least liquidation and a very steep downtrend. But we don't get real capitulation until we get this, right? So it's like again the geometry we were talking about, the geometry of the trade, where here it's like it's clearly selling off, but then and here's a little bounce, and then we get the real true bam price capitulation paired with the volume capitulation, and that's where this thing is putting the bottom in. Um, and because this is around the time where I got when that rhythmic screw up happened, um, I have that on tape. So, and I'd like to go over that because it's a good example, like a mini example of how what to look for in the tape when we're seeing these capitulation moves, where we're trying to find the bottom. And if I can find it, I guess it was, okay, here. I mean, it starts off here. I don't know if I want to play the whole thing. It takes a few minutes, but we can start it off here before, you know what? Let's start it here. So, this, what, what is this? Oh, this is already started here. Okay. Okay. The, so this is, the account was already, I was having those issues. This account was already about to blow up. I couldn't do anything. I was trying to put in orders, but you'll see some action here that doesn't really matter. But basically, this is a chart, silver futures. This is a ladder, and this is a tape here. So, and look at the chart for a second. So we are here. Basically, that move to the downside already started. So we're kind of, um, I guess we're kind of here. 835, 938, 9380. Oh, so we this already got, the first leg started, and then we're kind of here after this little pullback up and we've started already to like head lower. Okay, now I remember. Um, so this is already kind of like capitulation, but and then you can see the tape here again. It's slow, and you can see the tape here that's pretty much like stalled. But what do we see here? This is already because it's already sort of capitulating. It's paused here. One thing that you can see is everybody's expecting this to keep flushing to the downside. What do we see on the offers? We see a lot more offers stacked up, not just stacked up neatly here, but we see them like dispersed here. Because any people want to be capturing any bounce that we get up here. They want to be shorting it because they want to be in because they're expecting this to go down. That's one thing. Um, we're seeing the tape sort of stalling here. Um, we see the ladder sort of floating around. It's touching on a lot of prices, and that's why we saw those orders up high up there. Um, and it's basically not doing anything and waiting, because that's supposed to be at the bottom, but everybody kind of knows that it's just going to take out that bottom, I guess. Because it's starting, literally to like waterfall. You can see that here. So can't remember how this plays out. At some point, we're going to see here. Okay, so this is what you see. I'm pausing it here again. Now you see how the bids thin out completely. So all of them disappeared, and you only have one single, 5 contracts there on the bid there at 90.280. And we still see the offer stacked up. So that kind of tells you that this is about to give us a little flush, and we get the bids start stepping in and stack up again. So they're kind of saving it for falling, but it's clear that it's getting ready to, you know, see how those bids keep thinning out, and it's kind of like waiting to do a flush. You see how there's no bids left there anymore. And then they stack up again, but not quite. So on a very, very slow tape, anytime that you see prints, then you think like, oh, here's it's printing here, so that must be the bottom. Um, but I'm also cross-referencing. So I'm looking at the prints and looking here at the chart to see if I see any outsized volume candle. And we haven't gotten any yet. So, but these prints, for example, indicated on a very slow tape where nothing was happening, all of a sudden we start getting prints, then it's like the price starts going up. So it's kind of like telling you that it's like a bottom there. But we haven't seen a true volume capitulation yet. So maybe there's just a little pullback, um, and it's expected then that this is gonna, you know, continue to the downside. um, Looks like that little retracement there is finding a top here. My account there's already blown up, and you see that there's still a position on there. So this is all like glitchy. Who knows what's going on? You see a little bit more side stacking up there on the offers. So you see how the price like floated up, and then we saw tape printing it upwards. Now the tape stalled again, and the price sort of stopped moving up there, and then we should get a few prints to indicate that this is a top at some point. Looks like this could be it. It should be turning. Okay, here you see. So here it is going a little bit higher, but we're seeing a little bit more printing there, and that could be sort of like if we see a few more of those quick prints and we see this stop going up, then it means that it found like a top. They're selling into it, and then it'll probably turn there. So the reason why we're going through all this is so you see how the normal tape is sort of looking like, and then so you can see the difference, the real difference between this and when we actually do find the bottom. Because the key is in spotting the difference. So I'm not paying attention to this because I can't during so you'll see a lot of me doing stuff because I'm trying to get my solve the issue here. Um, so I'll be opening and closing a lot of windows on top of the ladder. Um, there the ladder restarted, but we're still at the same spot. So it looks like it did that's where it found a top. And now we're starting to head lower, I guess. Well, still not. We could start heading lower any moment. Here we got another push up there. But again, if you focus on the chart, why is it pretty clear that this is not a bottom? Because look at the volume candles. There's no indication here that there was any volume capitulation here yet. There was some volume capitulation here, and that got taken out. This shouldn't really be bouncing here, and it shouldn't be any more than just a retracement or a little pullback before we keep the downtrend because we haven't found any. Again, it could be wrong, right? You always have to do risk management, but there's no capitulation there yet. I think now it finally is heading down again. You see it. You see now. You can see it on the chart, and you can also see like it found a top, and now those prints that kind of pushed it lower. So now I guess we resume the trend lower. Every little pop here now, you'll probably see a little bit of prints here to indicate. So they're soaking or distributing into the pop, I guess. You could be, what I would probably be doing is then using a little trend line here to give me some reference. If it breaks below that trend line, then I get more committed. Okay, now I'm getting impatient, so I may want to, you know, oh, there it is. Fuck, okay. So there's, I guess that's where it's kind of starting. So here, we start this, okay, we're seeing the flush here. It's starting to flush, and we're seeing some prints. And we see this, we're paying attention to this volume candle here, and we want to see that volume candle getting really big. But basically, it's the prints here. Bam! I don't know if you see there, but there we got some real printing, and now we're getting more real printing. And it's all relative, right? And this is the key one. That burst of speed where we got the skip up, playing it back again. Because a little skip in the ladder when there's some real prints, that's the real tell. It's kind of like drifting down again, but as long as it holds above this area, and then look at the chart now. Now we have a real volume capitulation candle here. Actually, two in a row, and they're pretty big. So um, this seems to be the bottom. And now we're just waiting for it to and we see more printing, which is what we want to see. And we want it to hold this area, so it's basically here in the 900s, I guess. And then we just give it some time until it releases, sort of. So anytime that we see prints that we want to see this like moving away or flying away, it's because the tension accumulated. I'm pausing it again. So that volume that traded here at the bottom is now trapped, and we just waiting for that pop so it releases. And we kind of got a little bit of that there, so that could be indication that it is a bottom. It's drifting lower again, but not lower than where we got in. It's staying sort of roughly in that area. Every time it goes to that area, look again, prints, it kind of like gets bought up. It goes down and we see a little bit of prints, it gets bought. So the buyers are stepping in right there and like soaking it. We already got a little pop there indicating that, kind of, and here we got a couple of other two mini pops there. So it's clearly telling us that that's the bottom. And now we just have to wait. Some of that tension has been released, but there's still more to it. And now it's just heading up, and it's just heading up. And um, this is again the point where this is the stuff that I need to work on myself, which is like I'd probably be taking it off right now. It would be a $500 trade, as you could. I traded it on the practice account, but because I couldn't get out because of the the glitch, the shenanigans with Rhythmic, I ended up holding this and rode the trend up, and I ended up making five times that. So instead of 500, it was like a 2,500 trade. So th that is there's a lesson in there for me, I guess, and it's probably okay to you always need to trade these with a few lots and then take out, half or even two-thirds of your position to be that first pop, but then you need to leave some on for the retracement because this is supposed to be on you zoom out, it's a mean retracement trade and you need to let it go back to the mean, right? So, and it may take time, but getting out so early kind of like leaves so much on the table. So in this case, we get a few wiggles here. It did pop up into this area, pull back here, but there's nothing here that's telling it that's coming back down. Um, I think we get a little bit of a pullback here, and then we can make a higher low, and then it just keeps going and keeps going. And 10, 15 minutes later, we're already up here in this area. So you see, there's bam, another push up. This is the area where we first popped into because it made a higher low. Now it should be taking out that area. Um, and keep going up. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but if we fast forward a little bit, you can see how, in the end, look where we are on the chart. So look where we are on the chart. We're already up here, right? And I was already up 2,500. So um, I think that's a good example on a a smaller scale, little like capitulation bounce